Are you interested in starting your own cash PT practice? Maybe a little side hustle practice right now because you're bored with what you do at work and you're seeing massive volumes of patients. I found the most success by going this route through a practice in a gym. And this is why I started the Gym PT Blueprint. The Gym PT Blueprint is really a program that shows you exactly how to be successful in the cash model, whether it's a side practice or you're diving head first like I did. This shows you exactly how to set your finances up correctly, how to set your practice up correctly, how to sell things, how to market yourself, and how to really convey your unique value to other people so that they'll want to pay you for it. If you are struggling to figure out how to set your practice up correctly, or if you're in practice and you're not making at least 5 figures a month at this point, you really should check out the Gym PT Blueprint. Head over to drdannymattei.com/products. That's DRDANNYMATTA.com/products to take a look at the Gym PT Blueprint and see how this program can help you become successful. So here's the question. How do physical therapists like us, who don't want to see 30 patients a day, who don't want to work home health, and have real student loans, create a career and life for ourselves that we've always dreamed about? This is the question, and this podcast is the answer. My name's Danny Mattei, and welcome to the PT Entrepreneur Podcast. Hey, what's going on, guys? Doc Danny here with the PT Entrepreneur Podcast, and I'm super excited to have a friend of mine, a fellow business owner, entrepreneur, soccer player, mom, and overall design wizard. So Karen McKenzie, who owns Rhyme and Reason Design here in Atlanta, has jumped on the podcast with us today. So Karen, thanks for doing this.
Yeah, absolutely. I loved my little intro. So many things about me.
It's good, right? I could have said lots of donut lover, wife to a great realtor, like all kinds of stuff. So, Karen and I, we've been in the same business forum for quite a while, which is where I've talked about this before. We get together with other business owners and we meet once a month, and we have these kind of accountability groups, and we go over some big topics that maybe are problematic things within our business, and we can get feedback from those people. And so it's been fun to be able to kind of learn about her business. And her business is something that I feel like could benefit everyone that listens to this podcast. And really, that's design, and that's sort of a big umbrella term. So what does design mean? So like that's probably a lot of different things.
Sure. Design is the visual sort of representative of your company or a thing or an item. I think what we're going to talk about a lot today is branding, which I would argue is more than just design. It's more than that visual element, because there's a lot of conceptual background to it. But yeah, simple as that. It's just kind of the visual representation of your brand or identity in its physical form.
So, and before we get into the nitty gritty of like branding and all that stuff, why don't you give everybody just a kind of a quick overview of Rhyme and Reason Design and like what you guys do primarily within the scope of kind of
Sure.
design?
So Rhyme and Reason Design is a creative studio. We do everything from branding to print collateral to websites and social media. The background really about kind of how we work and what we believe is that you have to have both beautiful designs, which is the rhyme, and smart ideas, which is the reason, that come together and really create that superior design aesthetic. We work primarily in sort of like the tourism and Greek, so national fraternities and sororities realm. But we also work with small businesses, which I think can really apply to PT practices.
Absolutely. In fact, I've got a question for you. And what do you think physical therapy actually is? Because I don't think most people know. And I'd be interested to hear what you think it is.
Let's see. I think physical therapy is when you've hurt yourself and sort of modern medicine is not the fix. You go see a physical therapist and they needle you or poke you or bend you until you feel better.
I love it. So this is, it's so funny because when we ask, just like a random person, like, what's physical therapy? That's actually like probably more accurate to what I do than what most people say. But usually they're like, well, that's where my grandma goes. Like, oh yeah, my grandma, she gets that therapy over at wherever. And, I love the fact that we're talking about branding, because I think you could make a statement that just our profession as a whole is sort of like doesn't brand ourselves very well. And, there's so many different answers that somebody could give to that. So, maybe this conversation will ignite a fire in our profession as a whole, and we'll start to change that. So we'll see. I don't know. That's a big outcome, possibly. So let's do this. Let's talk about branding. So what the heck do people need to do to have good branding?
Oh man, so many things. Just kidding.
Yeah.
I mean, at its essence, I think it can be really simple. And I think one of the good things to remember is not to overthink it. So we help clients brand and rebrand. So sometimes you're coming into this with nothing, right? Like you're starting a company, you have no history, you have no idea really what you're doing, and you're really starting from scratch. We also work with people who, maybe have an organization that's been around for 100 years, 150 years, and they have this foundation of, fonts that they've used, symbols that they've used, colors that they want to bring up to date and modernize, but they need to sort of pay tribute. We as a company go through a lot of steps that work with both of those groups. So whether you're sort of dreaming about starting a PT practice or you already have one and you just realize that your brand is really weak, where we always start is putting together a creative brief. And it's not the fun part. It's not the design side of things, but it's sort of a look into what you want your brand to say. So it's figuring out who's your target market. So Danny, for you guys work with like high intensity athletes, who are probably younger, who, maybe a little intense in extreme sports and all of that. Some people are going to have PT practices that are focusing on, people's grandmas or grandpas who have a different personality. So figuring out kind of who your target market is at the very beginning is really important. Figuring out what you want your kind of mission and sort of vision to be is important up front. Danny, one thing you guys use is movement is medicine, and I love that line, and I love seeing it sort of weave its way through all of your branding. And I think it's a great sort of message to sink your teeth in and hold on to and tout. Another thing we put in our creative briefs are we have our clients pick 5 adjectives to describe their company or their brand. We encourage them to pick out some aspirational designs. There's a big difference between, something clean and sleek like Nike versus something more, scripty and old school like Coca-Cola. Having those aspirational ideas in mind is really helpful when you get to the design part. And then writing down some of your likes and dislikes. So as far as colors go or fonts, just having some ideas of what's on the table and maybe what's off the table, again, for when you start working with the designer. So it sounds like a lot of work, but it's actually a really helpful exercise in getting kind of all of these things down on one sheet of paper that you can either hand off to a designer or reference yourself, both on the design side and also just as you're trying to figure out the personality of your company. So that's the first thing we do.
It sounds like I did none of this. Okay, so let me say, we've had 2 logos, and the first logo, and I guess that's is logo the biggest part of your brand? I guess that's, if you look at branding, is that like a substantial portion of it?
That's kind of your cornerstone.
Okay. So yeah, we had the first one done, and I don't know if you've ever seen it. It's not the one we have now.
I want to see it.
Oh, you should. I'm actually wearing a shirt with it on right now. And it's like an A and a P with a weightlifter in the middle of the A, and then this lady running in the P, and then our name is below it. And it was just it's a ton of stuff in there.
Sounds like a lot going on.
Sort of super busy, and this is gonna sound bad, but the lady she's running, I didn't even think of this whenever it's happening, but there's
there's like a lot of side boob in the silhouette. And I have a good friend, and he was like, "What'd you get rid of the logo for?" Like, what are you talking about? He's like, "I love that logo," and he told me why, and I was like, "Dude, I've never even thought about that,
Oops.
man." Oops, yeah, exactly, right. So we had that one for about a year, and then we redid it, and we wanted something that would just be really clean, and it wouldn't like necessarily be quite so busy. But we didn't go through any of these questions that I really wish we had, because I guess from your side, this is kind of what people have to think about. Okay, hey, I want to get a logo designed. Here's what I want, and you tell somebody, and they're not in your head,
right.
like they can't necessarily pull out exactly what you're thinking, and maybe what you're thinking isn't even the right idea. Like that first logo, I was like, yeah, I want this stuff. That was an awful idea. Somebody should have told me that. So with you, like, what's the hardest part with helping somebody establish what they what they really should have as the cornerstone of their brand?
Well, with a lot of clients, we do a certain level of research and immersion. So whether it's doing focus groups or a site visit, which is probably more intense than what, this group is going to do or need. But I think just going through that exercise and sort of forcing yourself to write it down, and it can be aspirational, right? Like you probably knew that you wanted to work with more extreme athletes or CrossFit people. And you had that passion already. And so without even thinking about it, you probably steered your brand in that direction. But for those that are just getting started and aren't quite sure, it forces your hand to make some decisions.
Yeah. No, I like that. I think the more time you can take up front, the easier the process is going to be going forward. And really, like, the way you describe this is very similar to an exercise we did at we had a staff retreat where we really wanted to redefine our core values as we had brought on more staff, and we wanted to make sure everybody was on the same page. And we went through a lot of similar kind of exercises of really talking about what's important about our brand and what are other companies that we would like to model ourselves after. And so I think you could apply this to a lot of different things.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's a really good foundation for internal communications, for your marketing moving forward. It's a great place to start. So,
well, I have a question for you, because I don't know how to make something look nice, but I know when it does, right? Like I think a lot of people are like that. How do you go about making something visually appealing? I don't.
Really
is it just a gift?
Really simple.
Well, like the thing is, I have no idea, but I know when I see something that I don't like, you know what? That just looks wrong. And then when I see something that seems correct, it's just much more apparent to me. So how do you cultivate that skill set of being able to take things that are jumbled up mess like our first logo and then make it something that's more visually appealing?
Oh man. I think working with a professional is probably the best way to do that.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. How do you do it? That's like what's the skill set like that you have to go through to build that? Have you always been, really into making things look nice? Well,
I mean, in school you learn a lot about typography and the hierarchy of information. I think, good design is design that you almost don't notice, right? Bad design stands out to you, whether it's in a physical space or it's a logo that you can't read, or something like that, or it's too busy. I think, throughout school, learning hierarchy, which may just sound like jargon to you, but not having too many elements competing with themselves. And that goes for, a brand, which is, oh my goodness, condensed down into one mark and has to be so concise. But it's also true with printed materials and websites. If everything is screaming and competing for number one, then nothing's number one. So I think honing in on what actually is most important and what your one message is, not your top 10 messages. That's how you're going to create the appropriate hierarchy, and things will just sort of fall into place after that. But it's a skill set, just like, you go to the gym and you exercise and you hone your muscles and your abilities. I look at designs all day, every day. And so it's just, I exercise my sort of creative prowess that way.
I get it. And it's just so, I find it just so challenging that it's just not my skill set whatsoever. And it's just a perfect example of why, if you're listening to this and you've spent a decade going to school and learning all the stuff you need to be a good practitioner, why you shouldn't try to do design work yourself. I mean, it's just a terrible idea, because there's people like Karen out there that, are really good at this stuff, and I don't even know what typography is. What is that?
Type letter forms.
Sure.
It's the font, it's the weight. We talked about that earlier, like the thickness of the letters. It's how close or far away those letters are. There's so many small things that go into it that you would never notice. But you might notice if it was wrong. Like, have you ever looked at type and the letters are super close together and you can't tell where one ends and one begins? Like, it's kerned too close, and it irks you.
No, totally. So what do you different, give me an example of different fonts that would be used for different brands, like you're trying to get your message across. Like, the font is an important part of it. So what would certain elements of font tell? So
different fonts have different personalities. There are different categories. So you have sans serif fonts, which are like Arial. They don't have the little feet on the end. They feel a little bit more modern. I think a lot of practices, let me look at your logo. Well, the full thing isn't online. Looking at your website, like, everything is in a sans serif font. It's more modern. I think that's probably one of the more relevant kind of categories that a PT practice might work in. You also have serif fonts, which are a little more classic, almost historic feeling. They have those little feet on the bottom and the top of each letter. You have script fonts, which can range from anything from, artistic and brushy to kind of retro or 70s like. Kind of a new popular thing is slab serif. So it's kind of a more modern take on the serif. All of this probably means nothing to people listening. But if you're really interested in font,
it's like another language.
I know. Welcome to my world.
No, but this does make sense. Like, if I had the font that Coca-Cola had, it would not look right. In my opinion, for what we do, it wouldn't look right. And I think it visually, that would make sense to anybody listening to this. Like, think the difference between
Coca-Cola and
Apple
Nike.
Yeah, exactly. Coca-Cola and Nike. Okay, yeah, Nike is like the font style that we have is much more similar to that. And it's on purpose. Not that I knew what the hell that was when we were typing up, maybe the headline of the website on the homepage. It's just the one that seemed like it fit the best, sort of, right? And if you really want to play around with this stuff, what I like to do is, if we're doing like a little social media thumbnail or something like that on Canva, canva.com, they have like all these different types of fonts, and you can put stuff in and instantly I'm like, this is not right. Something's wrong. This doesn't match up with what I want to say. Like, whether it be, too, I don't know, it's there's too much curvature to it or what. It just doesn't seem like bold. I always seem to go to this one. It's like Legion something or another. I forget what it is, but it makes me think of like Spartans. And I think, I want to be associated with Spartans. That sounds good. So I'm going to go with that one. And and it's definitely a bold kind of in your face kind of font. So what about colors?
So there's a lot of design philosophy around colors that I feel like you can take and leave. One thing that we try really hard with our clients is to make sure from a competitor standpoint that they can, if the opportunity presents themselves, sort of set themselves apart from their competitors. So if, you have a neighboring practice that is orange all the way, maybe think about a different color, that when people come across your marketing out in the world, that they start building this, understanding of the brand. Oh, like, I see blue. I see this, what did you say, Legion font. oh, this is athlete's potential. So you're building this kind of brand personality that's consistent. I think consistency is really, really key when it comes to branding. It sounds like you look at all the other fonts that are options in Canva. I'd say find your font, maybe your top 2 fonts, and stick to those. Because what you're going to start doing is just like building a rapport with the people who come across your marketing out in the real world.
Yeah, that makes total sense. So what companies that are maybe a little smaller than, like a Nike or Coca-Cola or something like that, what companies do you think are doing a really good job of branding?
Great question. I don't know that they're that much smaller, but one that I really love is REI. I think they just have a great, and it's both in the design and also the personality of their marketing. They're human. Like they relate.
I love their logo.
Their logo's great. Their billboards are great. They're always super clever. They're lucky because they can use this like beautiful photography and, exotic, otherworldly places. So they have kind of one step up on the photography realm. But I think they've done a really good job with their brand, both in the visual and the sort of conceptual side of things. One of my other favorite brands. It's hard not to go big. Apple's just pretty flawless.
They kill it. It's so good. It's so good.
So subtle. Again, their photography is always just like pixel perfect. They don't overdo it. It's clean. Yeah. You can't go wrong.
Yeah. If we could just model everything after Apple, well, they don't pay taxes, so that would be awesome. And I read this book that was talking about, they have all their money in like some sort of Irish fund account or whatever like that. And they haven't paid quite a bit of taxes in a long time. And, but they have more cash on hand than the GDP of Denmark, the whole country. Like they have so much money. It's insane how much money they have. And maybe it's all branding, right? But who knows? Like they've got great products, but they have such a clear message though. You're definitely right about that.
Well, and even their products are an extension of their brand, right? Like they're simplified, they're clean, they're sleek, everything about their brand. And I think actually that goes, and that can apply to PT practices is, create this brand, but then you also have to be able to carry it over into your physical space. And you want that to line up. You don't want people to see a brand and think one thing and then come to your office and find something else. It's possible that it will be, you have really pathetic marketing and they get to your space and they're like, oh, this is wonderful. It's a good experience. But what can also happen is if they see, some beautiful marketing or they, see an ad and it looks nice and they end up then in your practice and it's a little run down or, the logo or, everything looks different when they get to your space, they'll probably be disappointed. So creating this consistent across the board experience is super important.
That's such a good point. And I feel like what you said, sometimes this is unintentional, or like, for instance, in our practice, in the we have like sort of a loft area, it's a mezzanine level in the back where there's an office, and then there's an office downstairs in the area there, and then it's pretty open. And on one of the walls, we have a squat rack and a pull-up bar, and it's anybody that does any sort of like physical training, whether it be CrossFit or weightlifting or whatever, just goes to a gym and they walk into a place and they see that. And sometimes we have people and they think that we own a gym. And it's not that we do that on purpose. We just need that equipment because we end up going over a lot of movement stuff with those folks. But the more I think about it, like the more the brand message of like who we work with, when you walk through the door, it's pretty apparent. It's like, dude, there's barbells and bumper plates and like kettlebells and, I don't see a TheraBand anywhere to be seen. So that makes a ton of sense. And if you're listening to this, your practice, the way that it feels, like that's branding, right? That's got to be part of it.
Yeah. So that's why when you asked the question at the beginning about like, what does it look like? Or it's like, it's not just the design of like one physical representation. It's all of these pieces of the experience that that go into your brand. And that like initial creative brief can help you sort of figure out what that vibe is going to be, both on a piece of paper and in that physical space.
So what about things that you give away or like, so for instance, like t-shirts or I feel like some people just put their logo on every freaking thing they possibly can. And is that a good thing? Like I guess if you have a pretty cool logo, that might be something that people would want. But like when we look at branding and then giving things out that have your brand on them, like what are some of the things that are the most effective?
Well, for me, like tchotchkes and swag, I think it's really important, again, to be true to your brand and true to your service. So, I mean, whenever I see you, Danny, you have an Athlete's Potential shirt on.
That's literally all.
That's all you wear. I mean, maybe like 5% of the time you're in like a Hawaii shirt or something.
Yeah, that's right. It's either a CrossFit shirt from Hawaii or it's an Athlete's Potential shirt. Because I figure it's my fucking company. I might as well wear the shirt.
And I think, I mean, as an owner, I mean, you, even your employees, like you're walking billboards for your company. So I think, you know, putting it on t-shirts and a uniform for you to wear is huge. But then also giving those away. I mean, people really like free shirts. And if you have a nice looking mark, or you're kind of creating a unique design and you've tastefully put your logo on the sleeve or the back, that's a nice way to get your brand out there without, you know, being super in your face. So I think both of those are good. I mean, for your industry, you know, water bottles or those little like tennis ball type things that you're supposed to sit on and put under your ankle or whatever.
The
there you go.
Balls.
Anything that's relevant, I feel like it's appropriate to brand. I mean, I think you can get creative, but we at least try to focus on things that we think people will actually want and use. Because otherwise they're just going to throw them away and it's a waste of money and a waste of resources. So I think kind of being aware of what your clientele might want is important, but man, put that logo on everything.
Yeah.
I mean,
that's
especially like if you're focused on athletes and you can send water bottles out into the field of all the CrossFit gyms around your city, like that's huge exposure.
Yeah. Yeah. That's so smart. That's a good idea.
You're like, I should do that.
Yeah. Hey, let me write that down real quick. It's true though. And you know, who does a good job of this is CrossFit gyms. Like, you know, the thing with CrossFit gyms is, at least when I first started getting in CrossFit, like it was a big deal if you went somewhere and you got a shirt from another gym. Because at the time, there weren't really that many gyms around. You know, this was like 2008, 2009. And there just really weren't that many. So if you had, you know, shirts from those gyms, it means you had to go to these places and get them. You know, and so you would go out of your way to collect them, and gyms would like go out of their way to create cool, t-shirts with different brand designs on it. Like I got this CrossFit Gym shirt that has, it's a fist holding a kettlebell. It looks like the Rage Against the Machine, like album. So awesome. You know, and I'm like, dude, this is amazing. And it's great. And so, but then I'm just representing their brand. So I think it's a great idea. And so, all right. So get your shit on swag that people actually want, give it out, and, you know, make sure that your practice feels like you want your brand to feel. Now, the last piece of that really sounds like it's your digital presence, right? Like your store of your homepage on your website, right? And we kind of chatted a little bit offline about this. So, what we'll do is we'll use my website as an example of some things that maybe you should and shouldn't do.
I expect you to make all these changes, Danny. Just kidding.
Well, you know what? I plan on I will do that. I just I don't know if I can. I'll have to figure that out. I mean, I need to outsource this, man. Somebody else. I've had issues with that though. We tried to outsource. We did outsource our website to a different company, and they were based in the US, but all of the people they used to do updates and stuff was in like India or Pakistan. So I would call these people and it would be like odd hours and it was really hard to understand them. And it was a terrible experience. And we stayed with them for like 6 months and it was really challenging to transition. Is that common? Do people usually do that?
The web world is a little tricky because a lot of the affordable options are kind of overseas, and there is that communication barrier and that time barrier. We're all domestic. We work with people that I can call and have a normal conversation with kind of at the drop of a hat.
Right.
So we don't personally deal with that, but I know that a lot of people, we often get hired because our clients have tried to work overseas and it doesn't work for them.
I think it's like, what's your time worth, right? Like the amount of time going back and forth. And then it's like, they would make a change and that change wouldn't be what we had actually wanted. And then you had to do it again, like try to call them, and it wasn't worth it at all.
Yeah. No, that can be a tough realm. And I think, there are a lot of inexpensive options on the design side, which I'll just kind of throw out there. And I think with logo designs, you can get away with it a little bit more. The website is tougher, but there are two sites that I think would be helpful, as people are embarking on the logo development. You can work with an agency like us that's a little bit bigger, that has a design team, that has an accounts team, that comes with a bigger price tag.
Sure.
You can work with a freelancer who's, one-on-one, and maybe you have a relationship with, maybe it's your wife's brother's friend or something. That can work out. And then there are a couple sites that have, one's been around for a while, 99 Designs, where you can go and you post your job. It is helpful to have your creative brief for that. And then it's almost like crowdsourcing for design. So people, all put in their designs and then you just pick the one that you want. And then there's Fiverr, which has 2 R's on the end. And that's more you select a designer, but it can be really inexpensive. So, in the world today that's, global and connecting people all over the world, there are inexpensive options if, as you sort of mentioned, you have that extra time to do a little more legwork.
Well, we actually used 99 Designs when we did our logo redesign. And the process was, we didn't do any of the front end stuff, right? I wish we would have. I'm not sure I don't know if the design would have been any different. We liked what we got, but so we submitted and we had so many, probably at least 200 different variations of designs. So we kind of gave them an idea of colors we wanted and stuff. And then we picked, I think 2 or 3, and then they made adjustments, and then we picked a final winner. So if you're bootstrapping it a little bit and you can't work with somebody like you guys, I definitely, I had a pretty good experience with them, but I love the brainstorming stuff that you talked about doing before, regardless of what you decide.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, again, helpful on all levels.
Okay. So here's what I want. Just rip our website to pieces and tell me just how to be how are you even in business, man? How did this happen?
You don't want me to start with the good stuff? Let me start with the good stuff.
No, the good stuff, don't worry about it. We'll get to the good stuff. Let's start with what do we need to change? What is wrong with our site? Because there might be plenty of other people that are making these same mistakes. And this is a Weebly site, by the way, for people that start we bootstrapped it. This is the first site. I built this over a weekend when I was still in the Army, and it's just like a make it your own site. And it's something we're actually in the process of. We're going to revamp our site and get somebody to actually make one for us over the next few months. But for now, this is what we got. So, all right, what's wrong with it?
First and foremost, I think you need your phone number in the top right. It's just sort of standard practice to give people a really quick and easy opportunity to connect with you. And you do have your contact us button. But it can be one click if you just have the phone number there, and then on mobile, it's going to be the first thing that pops up, and bam, they can call you. Nice. I think for businesses like yours, having that opportunity is pretty huge. Let's see, what else? I mentioned this. I feel like your navigation, the type is really fine. It's almost hard to read because it's this light gray. We talked about your target demographic. They're probably athletes. They're a little bit younger. May not be as much of a deal for you. But, if you are targeting an older demographic, keeping in mind that they don't want to look at 10-point font. They're going to need something that's a little bit bigger with a little bit more contrast. doesn't have to be horsey and ugly, but just again, making things as easy to read and find as possible is huge. One thing, clicking through, I visited your contact page. I think giving people a click, like one link to directions, especially, for the mobile site, people are gonna half the time be looking to contact you or find your directions because they're lost on the way to an appointment, trying to find your office. So that one click opportunity to just get directions or reach out is huge. Let's see. I thought it was interesting that you have a button to book an appointment on your homepage, but it's not on your contact page. Intentional?
I don't know why.
Okay.
No, it's not. I honestly don't know.
Maybe.
I mean, it's been so long since I've messed with this website. So no, it's not intentional. So you should always have a book online button and contact page if you have a service-based business.
Absolutely. You have it front and center on the homepage, which is great. But if somebody finds themselves, on your about page or reading testimonials and they're like, I'm ready to book an appointment, they're going to click on contact us to find that. And you're giving them an opportunity to call. But because you have that ability to book online, which I think is really nice, and you're going to have people who don't want to talk to a human, since you already have that capability built in elsewhere in your site, it would just be really nice to put it here too. Yeah.
Totally.
Easy, right? I mean, to be honest, your list of cons is not very long. You guys are doing a lot right. Can I talk about that now?
Well, actually, yeah, that'd be great. But I do have one question about something that was in the pros section, which was where'd it go? A contact widget. Are you referencing the thing in the bottom, the contact us sort of live
it looks
chat?
like you're using Pure Chat, which I thought was a really nice feature. It's kind of always stuck down there, makes you feel like somebody's listening, even though I assume this just goes straight to your email.
It doesn't. It's actually live, but we get the weirdest questions on
Really?
this. Like, I think it's people we know,
Just messing with you,
or maybe like sort of know us. Man, they'll like troll it. It's the funniest. It's like really funny, but it's also sort of annoying because it takes up the time of people that are like our office manager and Ashley that are answering that. But they're like, they're like, man, my butt really hurts today. What should I do about that? Or like, who is this?
Do they not? Maybe you need to make the first name, last name required. Is it
Mandatory? Yeah. Well, they'll just make something up.
That's true.
But yeah, so you're a fan of that then?
I mean, I think it's a nice feature. You do have to weigh whether it's worth it on your end if you're getting leads through that, or if it's just sucking up time. But yeah, when I came to this side, I was like, oh, that's nice.
Cool. All right.
So
what else?
pros, so things. I mean, these are good things about your site, but great things for people just to keep in mind as they're developing their site or revisiting their site. I not only looked at your site on a desktop, but I also spent some time on the mobile version. So having a responsive mobile website is huge. Most people are going to be, accessing your site potentially on the road when they're looking for directions for an appointment, or looking for a phone number, or bored, or clicking through from an Insta post and landing on a blog and reading through that while they're sitting in traffic or waiting for an appointment. Like, people spend a lot of time on their phone. So making sure that your website is sort of suited for that too. And maybe even mobile first, depending on your demographic. So, sort of kudos to you. I think the site is doing that well, and it's just something really to keep in mind. One other thing I really appreciated is you guys obviously had professional photos taken. I think it is so important to show what your space feels like, what your people look like. I think using stock photography is fine for certain things, but also showing real people just makes it more welcoming and makes you more human to somebody who might be setting up an appointment. No,
absolutely. Yeah, that was, and that's not cheap either.
It's not.
Like we had somebody come in on it was on a weekend on a Saturday, and but it's been great because we can reuse a lot of those photos, and you know, I mean, they look so much better than if we took them ourselves.
Yeah, you know, it can be $500, $1,000. It isn't cheap, but it's, I think, a really solid investment in your company. Yeah. We had them done, and we're actually going to have them done again in a couple weeks, and it just makes all the difference. Let's see. Other good things, real testimonials and videos. I mean, video is huge and just keeps growing, the amount of content out there. So that's a great thing to have on your site. And then, you know, having real, or at least perceived real testimonials is huge for people, especially in this sort of gray area of physical therapy where they may or may not know, is this really going to help me, or do I just have to go do this so that then I can get my drugs later?
Oh man. Yeah, that's a real problem.
Right. I mean, like, to educate people that, you know, what you guys are doing really is medicine, and, you know, that you can actually help them with their physical problems.
Well, the testimonial thing, I think, is huge. I mean, just for me, I think of it as a consumer. Like, if I go to Amazon, right, and I'm going to get, I don't know, vitamin D supplement for my kids, I'm reading the shit out of some reviews, right? Like, that's like one of the first things I do. So we try to put a lot of emphasis on, you know, getting people to actually leave us reviews. Are there any applications that you like a lot that can help, I guess, showcase your reviews better on your website?
It looked like you were using Google, LinkedIn. I don't know, like, specifically for your industry, to be honest. I mean, Ben uses all of the real estate, you know, Zillow and all that have opportunities to leave testimonials. So if there are sort of online spaces that are specific to medicine or physical therapy where you can leave reviews, those would probably be good, but I can't quite speak to that so well.
But getting as many as you can. Absolutely.
And hopefully positive ones, right?
Yeah, you know, for sure. And yeah, I don't know. I can't say we've really ever had a negative review. I think a lot of that just comes down to somebody's interaction with you, right? Like, if they feel slighted, they feel like you didn't do the right thing for them or ignored them in a service industry, especially with us. People are so vulnerable when they come in because maybe they've had back pain for 10 years, or, you know, they're not even sure if it's the right place for them. You know, if you can do the right thing for that person and you can develop a relationship with them where they really feel like they have trust with you, I would have to make somebody so mad to probably leave us a negative review. You know what I mean? Like, I mean, think about how many people we have really good outcomes with that would never leave us a positive review just because it's a few extra minutes of their time. You know, so like, but you'd have to really piss somebody off, I think, in our field. So hopefully that hasn't happened yet. So hopefully that doesn't happen going forward. We'll see. But it's big, yeah. So okay, and then content was the other big thing you put on here in terms of for SEO. So can you explain a little bit about like why that content is helpful for being able to be found online?
Sure. So, I mean, Google has all of these crawlers that crawl the content of your site. And if you only have a little bit of content, it doesn't give them a whole lot to work from. You also basically get, you know, bonus points, brownie points if you're updating your content regularly. If you're posting new media like videos, Google wants to see that you're a relevant site, that you have these backlinks from other sources. So other sites are connected to yours because it means that you're probably, you know, a legit source of information. So by creating blog content, obviously that's somewhat relevant to, you know, to your industry. You're just building over time this like web of information that's linked out all over the internet. That's using probably some of the keywords that people might search to, you know, find a physical therapist. It's going to help your, you know, search findings. You're going to pop up higher because of the possibility of you having a blog that's specifically relevant to those search terms. So yeah, I mean, content is king these days. I mean, it's huge and it takes time and it's certainly an investment, but I mean, from are Chad standing? It seems like you've gotten a lot of leads, both from your video content and from your blog content from all over the world of people interested in some of your kind of evergreen products that live online. So
yeah, totally. I think it's huge. I wonder sometimes how much people actually read blog posts now. I feel like they'll watch a video before reading a blog post, but if they watch a video and they read a blog post about the same topic and they're in our area, the likelihood of them actually like come wanting to work with us, it's probably very high. Yeah, that's quite a bit of time commitment by that point. But it's just something I feel like you have to do, and it is time consuming for sure.
One thing that I really liked about your blog is, it's not just you. You have multiple authors. So, you have the different doctors in your office writing, CrossFit instructors. It feels like you let people, be themselves and be human there, so that, I read a couple of blogs. They're enjoyable to read. They're entertaining. They're not just, boring, dull, blocks of information. You're not doing it for the SEO. It's interesting content.
Right.
So I think that's important too, that, SEO is this weird beast and it's always changing, and Google's always, switching things up and trying to create the best algorithm to figure out the best content. And if you try to shape content specifically for Google or for SEO, in the long run, it's just not a good move because they change it so often. So I think keeping in mind that you're creating content for people, and if that's sort of honest, genuine, authentic content that is worthwhile for somebody, it will continue to be relevant. And in the long run, that's going to help your Google search better than just typing a bunch of keywords into a page. Man,
that's such a good piece of advice. I feel like that's, if you're listening to this and you're like, man, you put it in your WordPress blog and you're like, well, I'm not getting green on SEO. Maybe that's not the most important thing, because for us, what we've noticed is we really pay very little attention to that. And we spend more time thinking about, well, what problems can we help people solve? We write content on that. And the more we do that, the more it gets shared and linked by other people. And that's been such a better strategy for us to really see results with than trying to figure out all these little keywords that we need, which may also, be appropriate for certain people.
And I think another note to having multiple authors, it's interesting from a reader's perspective, but you also then have a lot of other sources of referrals. So, it's not just you writing a blog and sending it to your friends or your colleagues. It's, 4 or 5 or 6 different people writing, or even more if you have guest bloggers. And then, they're going to share that with their friends. And all of a sudden your web gets bigger and bigger. And you have a more organic sort of, base to your readership.
Yeah, no, totally. That makes total sense. Well, Karen, this has been great. I really appreciate you, taking the time. So squared away, man. You did some homework. You looked at the desktop version. You look at the mobile version.
This is what I do.
Yeah, I know, right? But I appreciate it that you did that before we got on and chatted. And if people are interested in your company and they want to get more information about what you guys do, where can they reach out to you guys?
So we worked very hard on our online presence because that's what we do.
I really like your website, by the way. It just looks so good. It's like it makes my website look so much crappier. But it should, because that's what you guys do, right?
Yeah. So you can find us online at rhymeandreasondesign.com. I know it's a mouthful. But yeah, we have a lot of information about our company, a lot of work. If you just want some inspiration to see kind of what we've done with other brands, it's kind of a fun place to peruse and lose 15 minutes looking at pretty design.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. Karen, thank you so much for jumping on the podcast with me. Guys, I hope you guys enjoy this one. We've got a few different subject matter experts that we're going to get on in the next few weeks. And I really want to get a design person on, so we're lucky to have Karen. So Karen, thanks again for jumping on the podcast, and we'll catch you guys next time.